Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. I'm Tanner Knight, and today I wanted to do something slightly different. If you come here often, then you'll generally know that I'm hyper interested in musical gear, that whether that's guitars, basses, or more recently drums have been my focus, and I've spent a lot more time behind the kit and loving that. So that's what I've been into and up to for the last 10, 15 years or so. And I've kind of decided to do this video because it's just really difficult to find a lot of this information in one spot. So maybe if you're interested in kind of brands and their history, and more specifically, the history of each model in a brand and where it fits in kind of the hierarchy of what they offer at the time, then that's kind of what I'm interested in. I spend a lot of time scouring drum forums, and maybe I'm a bad drum forum guy for not participating by, responding or posting in these drum forums, but I do visit them quite frequently and try to find information, so I find them valuable. But I find that when you want to find kind of nitty-gritty details about a specific brand, there's no better way than to go through their catalogs, go back in history and find the early catalogs and take a look at what they had on offer at the time. And you may say, well, how would I get my hands on all that paper? And the good news is that you typically don't have to these days. And maybe this will be the only video in this series, but I kind of have a feeling that I can do a deep dive into a few different brands that I'm interested in just based on online sources. And if you take a look here, Tama has a website that we can really take advantage of for this specific purpose. So before we go too deep into the brand of Tama, let me explain what my goal is here. I wish to do a deep dive into every single model of drum. And I'm not talking about every single nut, bolt, clamp, this and that. And we'll talk a little bit about that stuff. But I'm mostly concerned about the model of drum shells and drum snares and entire kits as they were sold. We'll talk a little bit about cymbals as well as it pertains to Tama, but I think we can all kind of just upfront understand that Tama is not known as a manufacturer of high quality cymbals. They did manufacture Tama branded cymbals back in the day, but it was not their bread and butter. So before we go deep into the past, and I'm aimed to go right to the beginning, and luckily Tama has some really, really great resources, and we'll talk about the resources along the way. But one of my main resources is the Tama website, and let's just take a look at the homepage just for kind of reference. So we're introduced with a standard kind of website layout, Tama branding, and Tama 50th anniversary is kind of their prominent picture here, including the bell brass snare, the Mastercraft bell brass, and the old school stage stars. So, good imagery, looks pretty modern. We have some what's new, which is probably more like a vlog instead of a shopping situation, but they don't take long before they get to the products. And here we have a marching band specific section. So that's not something I'm familiar with at all. So sorry if we would just skip by that. But overall, if we keep scrolling, we get this Tama Bergerol concert percussion section. Again, this is not my area of focus, but it looks like they have concert snares and maybe some vibraphones or marimba style instruments. That's kind of cool. And buy Tama merch. Here's kind of your first buy some crap. And here's parts and accessories, which is also buy some stuff. But, pretty far down the website before they're trying to sell you stuff. It is a drum company after all. Then we have a little videos section, which is nice. Star Classic Mirage, the bell brass. They're just advertising kind of their own internal video production, I assume. They might have teamed with Drumeo or something for some of this stuff, but otherwise that's kind of their internal content. And now we get to the meat and potatoes products. That's kind of 2/3 of the way down. That's impressive, or I don't know, maybe it's an oversight depending on your point of view. But we do have drum kits, snares, original percussion, hardware, marching percussion, concert percussion, stands, sticks, bags, and accessories. So that's the full catalog right there. And obviously it's not everything. You have to click in to see the individual products, but I don't need to explain how a website works. The product search is way at the bottom, but they do have a search up here at the top. So I'll bet that's kind of a global search and maybe a more specific product search, and you can narrow it down like that. Nice website. And our social media for Tama, again, nice pictures from Instagram, Facebook, more looks like Instagram, Facebook, etc. Sign up for news, and that's it. So that's the website. That's Tama today. This is a company that's been around for many, many years, and you're seeing that 50th anniversary pop up. That's because 1974 is a pivotal year where the brand Tama is actually born. This video is currently being made in 2024, so there's your 50 years. And I'm not getting paid by Tama or anybody to do this video. In fact, this is something that I'm interested in. I love the brand Tama. I currently have a Superstar set from the 80s on either side of me, which may seem a little gluttonous, but hey. But anyway, I love the brand, and I love the history of brands in general that have kind of an impact on my musical sensibility. And I would definitely say that Tama really played a huge role in getting me excited about the drums and going down that whole rabbit hole. So let's go ahead and do that and start at the beginning. So another really good resource for me in this specific video was the hoshinogaki.co.japan website. And you'll see it does have the same exact Tama branding. Hoshinogaki is the holding company, the owner of Tama, and that's pretty common for large instrument manufacturers to be under the umbrella of a larger company. And that's the case here, Hoshinogaki. And we'll talk more about that in a bit, but this was a really good resource. And they actually have, it starts at 1974. We're going to go a little further beyond that, before 1974. But remember, I said 1974 was the beginning of Tama. So this was a really good website, Hoshinogaki, and I utilized a lot of information from it. This website called themedium.com, I'm not really familiar with it, but a quick Google search gave me the history of Tama drums throughout the years, and it starts a little earlier in 1962. So that's kind of where I'm going to start. This was a big resource for me as well. So there you go. 1962 is where we're going to start. And before we get to the Tama name, we do have a drum manufacturer under the Hoshinogaki name, and it is Star Drums. So that's where we're going to start, with Star Drums. This website was a huge resource for the Star Drums specific stuff because, believe it or not, there's not a ton of information pre-1974 when it comes to the Tama or the Star brand. And you'll see that name Star kind of pop up throughout this video. So keep an eye on that. But we're going to start here at the beginning with Star Drums. And my primary resource for this information was stardrums.de. So 1961, 1962, this is kind of a conflicting date that I've found when it comes to the exact start of the Hoshinogaki musical instrument factory that they called Tama Saisakusho, which Tama is in the name there. So it's not that far of a reach when we get to 1974. But in any event, it's either 1961 or 1962. Most resources cite 1962. Hoshinogaki sets up as a musical instrument manufacturing factory. And again, they called it Tama Saisakusho. And they built guitars and amps. And from what I can also tell, we also get our first Star drums. And again, this is kind of a bone of contention in some of these resources. A lot of them state that the drums were not made in this factory until 1965, but I just so happen to have a 1961 drum catalog At least that's what it claims to be. This is right from the Tama website, and this is where most of my resources will come from for the rest of this video, is that I actually do have access to the Tama catalogs of the era, and I can't be 100% sure that they are correct with their listing, because you can see this one's called 1961 Star Drum. I didn't name it that. That's what this file is called on their website, and it's in the name here, Star 1961 Star Drum. So bear that in mind, that this might be slightly incorrect due to the fact that we're going back way far in time. We're 60 years plus, so keep that in mind. But let's take a look at what we've got here. In 1961, we had some of the most basic names for kits here. Let's take a look. Ensemble number 6. We also have ensemble number 8, which is slightly less compared to ensemble number 6. And we get a snare and some toms, the bass drum on its own. The cymbal stands, I don't believe they're selling the cymbal as well, just the stand, as well as a drum pedal. And in this case, the sock pedals, I believe that's the hi-hat pedal based on what it looks like, as well as some drum stands, orchestral drum accessories. They were still kind of trying to straddle the market between popular music and orchestral music, I guess. And we have cowbells and other mufflers and sound makers. And that's it. That's 1961 Star Drums. We have the logo in the corner. There's no dating anywhere else other than what Thomas says. But this is our big daddy, ensemble number 6, a 22-inch kick, a 12-inch tom, I believe, and a 14-inch snare. So it's everything you need, but it's not much. And these drums in the beginning, they were not great. Hoshinogaki was figuring it out, and I put that in air quotes, but you can't really see that. But they were figuring it out, and this was kind of their intro. A cheap-ish drum set that did not have many bells and whistles, but was, decent for the time and the money. And keep in mind, this is 1961, not terribly long after World War II, as time goes. So Japan is just starting to get on their feet as a manufacturer, and musical instruments are really coming to be really popular across Japan and the world. So later on, these names, I believe even in the next year, later on, they become the Ensemble 5500, Ensemble 5300, Ensemble 5200, and then they only provide a single snare at first. But when we get to 1963, we get the addition of a second snare. We have kind of this oyster pearloid stuff, and then a chrome snare. So twice the snare, but we still have the stands, the orchestral stuff, the toms. Here's where we have our names. Ensemble 5000 is pretty stripped down. Ensemble 5200 gives you one more tom. We add a bit more bells and whistles with 5300, and then the big daddy is 5500 with, again, a 22-inch kick, a 14-inch snare, 13-inch tom, 13 by 9, and I believe it's a 16 by 16 floor tom. Kind of modern sizes, not entirely weak, not really, tiny club stuff. This is actual full-size stuff, and pretty good. So 1963. So here's where things get a little dicey. This catalog has a picture of this set, and it's called 1965 Swing Star. Very familiar name, Swing Star. But I also located this 1972 general catalog from the same website, mind you, just a different link, and they both have the same exact kit shown. So I tend to not believe this one. Plus, I think the graphics are a little more modern, a little more 70s in this one. So I'm inclined to believe that this is actually a 1972 Swing Star catalog, and you should not believe anything that you read from this as far as it being a 1965 catalog. But having said that, I think the reason that this mistake was made is because in 1965, the Swing Star name was introduced. And if you're familiar with kind of 80s-ish era Tama, you'll probably know that the Swing Star was kind of their middle of the road kit. I believe it was right under the Royal Star in the early to mid 80s. And that kit, we'll get there. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but the Swing Star kind of has its own cachet and its own name. And it did start before pretty much all of the other Star names, other than the fact that these are Star drums. But in 1966, we have 4 snares, different colors, have similar stands. Let's go up to the drums and take a look from the start. We have some full-on double rack-mounted toms. So cool. This is when in 1965 was the first year that they introduced the 2-tom set, and 66 is the second. But like I said, I couldn't find the actual 65 catalog. So that's still up in the air. But either way, by 66, we have 2 toms mounted on a 22-inch kick. So this is really getting close to our modern rock or just normal pop kit. This is where we start to see different nomenclature revolving around the models, such as diamond solo outfit. Instead of numbers, we get diamond, we get the king beat, which keep that one in mind. That one's going to come back, but we do have the king beat outfit, modern jazz, stage master, club beat, and here we go, folks. The Swing Star complete outfit, 1966. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this one came out in 65, but it's a really stripped down version of their, I guess, club beat. So it's just a single kick, a single snare, a friggin' cowbell, and what appears to be a ride crash. So you get a kick pedal as well, a muffler, and some brushes. Also in 1965-66, we get the Drum Mate model, which is the first time that we see that name. So you get Drum Mate 3, 5. This is, I believe, kind of their student-y stuff, just lowish tier. And that kind of carries on throughout the years. By 1972, the Drum Mate is kind of the lower end of the model. So this is 1966. We have the 4 snares. We have stands, a little more variety, but they're still single bracing and not very great as far as things go. These are still early on, and people are not hitting the drums as hard as they will in the near future. Keep in mind, this is mid-60s. Kind of the Beatles are just starting to influence the world, and Japan is taking notice, and they're really trying to lead the charge when it comes to high-quality, low-cost instruments. And all of this stuff is 1966, and we got a pretty full catalog by now. A snare with a carrying case, the pedal, a curved deluxe throne, so really cool, twirling batons, all of this crap. You can buy the lugs and the T-rods and everything separately now, and even the specific drums. Ooh, little bongos as well. So the first mention of cymbals, King's Tone. These are Turkish model cymbals. They're bright, quality, maximum resonance, blah, 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 blah. So I couldn't find very much information about these. They don't talk about their historic cymbal manufacturing capabilities ever. So I believe these are probably purchased from, I don't know, let's say Avidus, or maybe this is 66, so maybe it's Paiste in Europe. I don't know. But let's say that they take these cymbals, rebrand them, and sell them in their catalog. That's my best guess. I cannot imagine that they are forging cymbals, as that's a huge investment. But anyway, they exist in the catalog. We have brushes. If anybody has these King's Tone cymbals, I would love to hear what you think. Do they stand the test of time? I don't know. Also in 1966, guitar production ceases with the Hoshinogaki. They focus on drums specifically. They're trying to hit a bunch of different price points. We actually have 2 tom sets, 2 rack tom sets, that is, and it's starting to look like a pretty rockin' set. So there's not much available on what happens between 1967-ish and 1972. But we do have this one little catalog from 1967 that just shows off some toms, couple sets, and they changed the name again to Starstream Master and Starstream Professional. But don't get too used to those names. They don't stick around for very long. But you can see King's Tone, Ibanez, Jamboree, Golden Tone. These are the brands under the Hoshinogaki name. And this is the factory. So kind of cool little catalog. That's 1967. So in 1972, we start to see kind of modern photography, modern appointments. It's starting to look kind of modern. And we have a lot more information in the catalog. So you can take a look at that on your own time. But here we go. We have the complete King's Tone, which, again, that was the symbol line, but now they're using it on this set here. And they have a couple different options here. Outfit 8005 versus 8000 gets you another tom once again. And we get to see a little bit under the hood, a little bit of the construction. And they still don't tell you what these things are made of. That's kind of one of my beef with the Star Drums catalogs. And maybe it just wasn't a thing that consumers wanted at the time. But it does seem that we do not get to know what these drums are made of. My guess is Philippine mahogany, which is Luan or Luan. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but that's kind of what gets used in the mid to late 70s into the 80s on more mid-tier kits. So that would make sense. But we do have the Starstream Professional, the Starstream Custom, and we get some crazy wraps. Speaking of wraps, all of these drums have been wrapped. The top of the line, the Diamond Solo, on back to the model number 6, they were all wrapped. So that's kind of what you can expect here. We don't actually get wood drums until a little bit later, but we have the Starstream Pro set, the Starstream Master. These are all based around a 20 or a 22-inch kick. So you can see here we have a 20 by 14-inch kick, and if we go up a little higher, it should be a 22-inch kick for the King's Tone. So, you know, these drums are really kind of settling into that modern size of 20-inch, 22-inch in the early 70s. Here's our very first shot of one that is a double kick, a 2-kick drum set. And it still only has the 3 toms, but the snare is mounted in the center with the cymbals and stands. So that's pretty cool. Otherwise, we've got some kind of larger rock-oriented outfits here, the Concorde and the Starbeat, which again, we have a double bass or just 2 big-ass toms with 2 kind of medium to small-ass toms. The King of Kings, 20 and 22-inch. We still have that Diamond Solo, so that kind of surprised me to see that there, but it must be kind of lower in the range at this point because that's typically how these catalogs go. Golden Tone, King Beat, Stage Master, and Modern Jazz. So familiar names so far. Stage Light gets added, Stardust, whatever the hell that is. Looks like a 20-inch kick as well, single rack tom. And we get to some King Beat snares. So that King Beat name is starting to kind of solidify for the snare line, and keep that in mind. A lot more snares, a lot more wraps and metal options, and the individual drums on their own. This big weird ass cocktail drum, that's kind of cool. And yeah, this catalog is much, much bigger. By the 70s, we've got marching drums, we've got twirling batons. They're starting to get into that market. And the accessories, congas, Latin percussion, stands, blah, blah, blah. We've got a ton more crap. Sticks, lugs, marimbas, more vibes and stuff like that. Wraps and specs. So that's when we start to really see things take the shape that we kind of see with the early Tama stuff. So 1972, pretty big year for the Star brand. So speaking of 1972 and this kind of 1965 misnamed Swing Star catalog, I think we can safely put it in 1972 and also include the Swing Star. This is kind of a separate catalog, but we also do get the midget drum, kind of funny. And the Swing Star kind of occupies, I guess, the middle tier for Star. I don't know why it gets its own catalog. I think just because it's kind of been around for so long, but that's one of these anomalies that hopefully maybe someone can fill me in here. But that's 1972. So remember the drum mate that we had in 1965/66. This is what it looks like in 1973. So it's still around. It's called the drum mate, and it has kind of smallish outfit sizes. And again, I think this one sits slightly above the Swing Star, but maybe it's below the Swing Star at this point. It's hard to tell. But it looks like it's a pretty small size kit. So maybe it's their bottom tier, their student stuff, and the Swing Star is slightly above it. Let me know if you have any specifics on 1972-73 Swing Star versus Drum Mate. So we're getting to the 1974 crux of Star drums. So I'll cap it at that for 1973 with the drum mate, and the next part of this video will be focusing on the Tama brand of stuff. Yay! But before we do that, there's a few other things that you need to know about Star drums out in the world. So Hoshinogaki was a well-known instrument manufacturer, so of course a lot of different stores or entities would come to them and say, hey, could you make a blank and put my name on it or put this name on it? And they would say, sure, X amount of dollars or yen or whatever it was. So that's not uncommon with this MIJ, this made in Japan early rock and roll drum stuff. So these are some of the brands that you can expect to see on Star manufactured drums. You'll see an Apollo, an Artist, blah, 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 Boston, Carlton, Champion. Not very many of these are still recognizable today. There's an Ibanez, there's a Lotus, a Lucky Star, Lyra, Majestic, Mitchell, Ralston, Revell, Saturn, Stewart. I've actually seen some Stewarts in real life. Supremacy, Werco, Weltron, Tulio, Tempo. So nothing really that I recognize a ton there, except for maybe Ibanez. But those are some of the badges that you can see on Star manufactured drums out in the world. This is, again, the same kind of year range, 1961 to 1973. Probably more so in the 60s than the 70s, but just know that that was a pretty common thing in the era. So the real legacy of Star drums, of course, is Tama. But if you just look at them under the microscope as an entity, I would say that their legacy is more so that they're lighter duty hardware, less than perfect craftsmanship. I would say the wraps often hide the sins of craftsmanship. And basically, Star drums was the learning curve for Tama. And they took everything they learned in those years with Star drums and did a rebrand. And it went really, really, really well. 1974 is the big year.